So on your first piece of fabric, a rectangle piece, we're just going to sew a little bit just to kind of get the feel of the way fabric moves through a machine as opposed to a piece of paper. So you can basically just put your fabric underneath your presser foot, drop your presser foot down, and then just sew however you want. Okay, going in any pattern you choose. At some point you might want to drop your needle down and pivot just to kind of get a feel for that. Okay, we did this on paper. Okay, I'm going to do that again. And I'm going to make a little wave just to kind of get a feel for how this works on fabric. Okay, so after you get a feel for it, kind of fill up this piece of fabric with different stitches. Make sure your presser foot is up, your needle's up, your presser foot up, and then pull the fabric out. Now if you find that you're having problems pulling your fabric out of here, the thread looks like it's gotten stuck a little bit. If you still have your fabric attached to this, use your hand wheel to kind of move the needle up and down a little bit as you tug. It will eventually come a little loose. Make sure that you trim your fabric close, or excuse me, trim your thread close to the fabric. You want to make sure you leave a long tail here. If you don't leave a long tail, sometimes when you start sewing your next piece of fabric, the thread will come right out of the needle, so then you'll have to rethread that through. So on your next piece of fabric, we're going to line it up so that you are getting a straight line every time you sew. So the first thing you need to notice is that on your sewing machine, you do have some little lines next to where you're sewing, okay, away from the foot. Okay, so you have a line right here, 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 on the plastic part of the throat plate, and so forth. On these lines above them, you'll see some fractions, which are measurements: 3/8, 1/2, 5/8, 3/4, 1 inch, and after the 1 inch, it just continues in 1/4 inch increments there. Okay, so in order to get a straight line, you're going to line up things to these particular lines. Now the first one we're going to do, we're actually going to line it up to the outside edge of the presser foot. Okay, so that is a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, or a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You'll see that I have it lined up right there on the edge of the presser foot. And when I sew it, I want to keep it lined up to that very edge. Okay, so here's another view of my fabric lined up to the outside edge of the presser foot. You can kind of see those lines there. You can see that my fabric is right here on the edge. Okay, so when I have that all lined up, I'm going to want to sew, keeping it lined up to that outside edge. It's going to give me a straight line. It's going to keep me exactly the right amount of stitching from the outside edge of this fabric to where I wanted it stitched. In this case, it will measure out to be 1/4 of an inch. For this next one, we're going to line it up on the third line. Okay, so 1 line, 2 line, 3 line. That is 5/8 of an inch. Okay, that is the typical place where you'd be sewing clothing. Okay, is lining it up to this line here, 5/8 of an inch. Okay, so to line that up, I'm going to keep it on that same side of the fabric. I'm going to line that up. Okay, and drop my presser foot. Again, I'm kind of one-handed here. Okay, so I'm lined up. Oops, I'm not lined up to the right line. Okay, there I am. So there I am lined up to the 5/8. Put my presser foot down. You can see I'm right next to the line I just did. This way you can kind of see the difference here. Okay, and just start stitching. You're gonna keep it lined up to that line the entire time. Okay, if you find yourself getting off, you can gradually try to get yourself back on track, or you can simply stop, cut off, and go again. Okay, again, you want to keep your eyes on the edge of the fabric. You do not need to watch the needle. The needle knows what to do. Okay, when you have finished that one, make sure your needle is out of your fabric. Lift your presser foot and pull out your fabric. Okay, you cut it on the edge of the presser foot. Okay, next I'm going to do 1 inch, which is that first line on the plastic part. And then I'm going to do a 1/2 inch, which is that third line on the plastic part. Okay, so I've got it lined up there on my 1 inch mark, and I'm just going to start sewing. Keeping it lined up. Again, I am watching the fabric, I am not watching the needle. Okay, I'm going to keep going all the way down. After I do this line, I'm then going to do the 1/2 inch, the 1.5 inch. Okay, and then I'm going to flip to the other side of my fabric and do the other side. So your end result will end up looking similar to this. You'll have 4 lines total on each side of the fabric.